Get close, don't worry.
What do y'all think? It's astronauts in our future. Jane, come out just a little bit. Now let's hear what they got to tell us.
All right, done. Thank you. Wait a minute. You want to sit right here? All right, cool.
Good afternoon. I would like to welcome all of you here today for our briefing for Senator Warner on our ThinSat program. My name is Jane Carter. I'm a teacher here in Wise County. I teach chemistry and environmental science at Eastside. I'm STEM director for St. Paul Elementary. But I'm also serving as the lead mentor for the 9 teams that make up the Wise County Lead Group. Senator Warner, we thank you so much for taking your time today to be with us. I think you're going to be really impressed with what this group of students that are scattered all around the room have got to offer to you. Before we start, there are a few folks that I would like to acknowledge. First of all, we have with us our Superintendent of Wise County Schools, Dr. Greg Mullins. We have one of our board members, which is Donnie's Kern. I have been told that somewhere, and maybe still actually hiding out there, is Douglas Mullins.
He's back there.
He's back there. We have some other friends with us today. We have, first of all, a couple friends with us that's from Kentucky, our neighbors. I have Tom Cravens, who is the Executive Director of the Challenger Learning Center in Kentucky. Be sure and see Tom afterwards. He does have some information about the Challenger Center, and if you have not been to a Challenger Center, I challenge you to go. They're very impressive, okay? Also with him is Bart Massey, who is the Executive Director with the USA Drone Port. And we'll talk a little bit also have with us Dr. Cecil, Dwayne Cecil. He wears a multitude of caps. He is the founder, chief scientist for Destination Space. And his group is also serving as a technical advisor to us on some of this. So where did I lose him? He's right back there. Some of the most important folks that are here you're going to hear from, and that's our students. So if you are a student that is involved in the ThinSat program, would you just wave your hands right now for just a second so that they can kind of look around and see that there are several of them? We have teachers that are involved. Come on, there's more. Administrators that are here as well. We have, I know several administrators that are here, so you guys can wave too. And just as important as that is, that we all know, is the parents, the grandparents, the siblings, the friends. Everybody else that's in this building that's here today for us, you're very important to the success of this program. And I thank you for your attendance too. I'm absolutely thrilled to see this group that we have that's here. So one of the things that we will say, and as a parent or as a teacher, very often I may say, you can do that. It's not a problem. You know, we tell our students, shoot for the stars, the sky's the limit. And that's the truth. And what I hope that you're going to see with this program is that it is true. Technology is advancing not only every day, it's advancing every second, every minute of the day. All the time, something is changing. So the catch is that we want to prepare our students so that as technology advances, they're not going to be replaced by that technology. They're going to be supporting that technology. They're going to be on the forefront of that technology. They're not going to be worried about being replaced by a machine, being replaced by something that's automated. because they're going to be the driving force that's behind that automation, behind that machinery, behind the programming that's going on with that. And so today there's a group of students that's going to give you, Senator Warner, as well as the rest of this group, an overview of the ThinSat program. You know, I want you to think about that within this ThinSat program, you're going to see that they're programming, they are designing, they are collecting data that is all associated with sensors that are going to eventually make their way onto a satellite. You know, Wise County, if you think back just a couple years ago, Wise County was the site of the first FAA approved drone delivery. Something that you may not know is that Wise County right now is students at Eastside High School, and several that are here, are actually one of only 5 groups in the entire country, in the United States, that's going to be participating in a pilot program on artificial intelligence for programming a chatbot, and this is being financed through General Motors. So the catch is that all of these things work together. The nexus that happens between the satellite, between the sensors, between the drones, between the artificial intelligence is so very, very important. That drone, when it makes that commercial delivery, can make use of the satellite, can make use of the sensor to immediately tell that company that that commercial delivery has taken place. And again, the goal is that these students are the ones that are going to be involved in all of that. They're the ones that's going to be not replaced by that type of technology, but they're going to be supporting, they're going to be developing, and they're going to be dreaming. The jobs that these students, when we look around, that these students are going to have someday, we don't even know about what they are right now. They are our future. So let's get to what we actually came to talk about, and that is the ThinSat program. Okay? So the ThinSat program comes together to take this program and look at STEM. Everybody's heard STEM: science, technology, engineering, and math. You know, another acronym that I really like from that standpoint is that we say that we have students who are thinking, they're engaged, and they're motivated. It doesn't matter what the subject is. We've got to get them being problem solvers, getting them thinking. And so this program is definitely doing that. We are in the pilot phase of that. And so to just give you an idea here are some of the players in this. Virginia Space, which is formal definition, and I always want to make sure I read it so I don't get it wrong, but Virginia Commercial Space Flight Authority, otherwise known as Virginia Space, Orbital ATK, Twiggs Space Lab, the Near Space Launch, and the X in the Box. So how do they all come together? How do they play this role? So if you look at this, the governing body, or kind of the collector of everything and the project organizer, is Virginia Space. We're going to, of course, use Orbital ATK for our launch, which will be discussed with you a little bit later. NASA, you know, everybody has a tendency to think when we hear space that NASA is immediately involved, and they are. But there's a lot of other players because we began to commercialize a whole lot of that lately. But NASA, because of the fact that the Antares is going to be taking a payload to the International Space Station, obviously NASA is going to be involved as a support. And then Twiggs Space Lab. And underneath that, we have the Near Space, MEDO Space, which MEDO Space is our X in a Box, and Planetary Systems, which is looking at developing the container for the satellites that is there. These folks have been working on this for a long time. You know, this type of project does not come about overnight, and there's still work that is happening with this, okay? We are constantly troubleshooting, but that's okay, because that's life. We're allowing the students to see some of those types of things that are happening as well. So what I would like to do at this point is we're dividing things up. We are going to present to you the different phases to this. Students that are scattered around at the different tables, they have a lot of the sensors out. And so I would welcome you as the students are presenting, if you'd like to see some of those different types of sensors and so forth, feel free to look at those. So at this point, we're going to start with phase 1. Right? And, well, let me mention also really quick, I want you to look at our lead institutes, okay? We are one of those. I think it might be interesting to you to see that who we're working with on some of those, okay? U.S. Coast Guard, the Navy, a lot of colleges. Now, there are a lot of other high schools, middle schools that are involved, but they're falling under the guidance of some of those other lead agencies, okay? So, we're definitely showing that our kids are dedicated and they can figure this out. So, this is Daniel. Daniel's one of my students from Eastside, and he's on the Eastside ThinSat team. And I'm going to turn it over to him to talk to you about phase 1.
Okay, so this project is divided up into 3 phases, and I'll be talking about phase 1. And with starting with phase 1, the first step of every great project is to just become familiar with it. And so we started phase 1 by bringing our ThinSats into the classroom and just being familiar with the sensors and the software that are involved. So we met after school and we configured the satellites. We had to download some information off the internet, set them up for our specific purposes. So we learned how to use the technology to collect the data that we will be reporting, which is the eventual goal of the project. And eventually, when we're finally completed all that, we already have launched a satellite on a balloon into the atmosphere and collected data from it. So the sensors that are on the ThinSats, you can see this is an example of one of these we launched on the balloon. There are different units, such as one that records weather conditions, such as humidity or temperature. There's one that records light levels and radiation levels. And there's a GPS on each satellite so that we know where in the world it is. It records latitude, longitude, altitude. And we will link 2 satellites via radio that can talk to each other. We launched one on the balloon and we kept one on the ground, and that's how we transmitted the data. So when the data is transmitted, we have hooked our satellites up to an online program called Data Dashboard, and we will see a chart that looks like this. As long as the ThinSat is transmitting and recording data, we can see everything that it records on Data Dashboard. And not only can we see our own information, we can also link it to the information from other schools, and we can compare our data. And we've been doing data collection from many different places. We started just around the school for a few minutes just to get used to the program, and we've drawn it out. We left satellites plugged in for days, weeks at a time, and we can record data from the entire time and go back and look, and at any given time we can see what the conditions were like at that point in time. So after we configured our radio systems and connected to the data dashboard, we held our balloon launch at the airport in Wise. We connected our satellite to the balloons, as you can see, and we let the balloons go as it drifted off into the atmosphere. We were able to record and see all the data that the satellite in the air was picking up. And even after it went out of visual range, we were still able to collect the data. And that is the goal of the project in the future, to collect data all the way from space. And that concludes phase 1.
How high does the balloon go over this one?
I don't know. We could look at our data.
It varies with weather conditions. These are basically helium balloons at this point. Now, Jeffrey's going to talk about phase 2, which is a high altitude balloon, and we know exact elevation on that.
So after phase 1 was completed, that it doesn't mean that it's completely irrelevant. We have moved on to phase 2, because the data we recorded is still relevant, and we can still continue to collect data from around the school and around our community and around here. And now I'll turn it over to Jeffrey, who will talk to you about phase 2.
Good afternoon. As he said, my name is Jeffrey Hunsaker. I'm a junior at Eastside High School, and I will be speaking on phases 2 and 3 of the ThinSat program. Now, in stage 2, we received our new components for our satellites, and they're going to be very similar to the final product, which we will be launching into space. And some of our materials that we got were actually space hardened, so they are actually the actual materials that have been fortified against the extremities of space. And we're able to do some more of our realistic testing as we got our engineering model, and that allows us to mess around with the actual proper code and materials that we will be launching. Now, later with phase 2, we are going to be sending our satellites to Indiana to be launching on a high-altitude balloon, which will go anywhere between 100,000 and 120,000 feet into the atmosphere. And we will be able to get live data from that launch, and that will help us come to an idea of what our final project is going to be and what we are going to be looking at with our satellites. And there'll be a few other things we're going to do with the high altitude balloon is the high point of phase 2. Now in phase 3, our ThinSats are manufactured and we send off our final design. We send that to Twig Space Labs and it is tested and then compartmentalized. And after that it is going to be sent to the facility and it is going to be put into the Antares rocket. Now this is the Antares rocket, and there is extra space in that booster section, and that is where we're going to be storing the satellites. That is in the second stage of the rocket. And we have images of the launches just. Now, this is where it all happens. So the second stage of the rocket goes out after the burnout. We're up at about, let me look at the exact numbers, don't want to lie to you. About 200 kilometers to 250 kilometers, which pretty high up, and that we're going to release our satellites there. And they have enough speed to be going around the Earth, and they will be in orbit, an extreme low Earth orbit is the technical term, and they will remain there for about 5 days. And after that 5th day, they're going to descend far enough in the atmosphere to where they will burn up upon re-entry. Now in that 5 days, we are going to be getting tons of data, a veritable treasure trove of data. And that will help us answer our final question. We'll get all of our data to make this project a real success.
Very good.
I will now have Ellen Smith speak to us about some of our.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Most great people have achieved their greatest success just one step beyond their greatest failure, Napoleon Hill. Good evening, my name is Elle Smith. I'm a sophomore at Central High School, but I go to the East Side High School ThinSat team and kind of collaborate and work on our projects. I believe that quote went with this project and is very prominent throughout it all because we were challenged to learn and overcome our struggles. We had to think uniquely and use our resources for our testing. It was very hands-on and we had to learn how to work as a team. Also throughout this project, we had to learn how to reflect back on our data. We have an even level of technology through the Internet of Things. Even though we're from a small place, we still are doing what the Navy's doing throughout this project. We have the input on advancement, and we learn how to do something that someone else has never done before. In the 100,000 and 120,000 feet area in the atmosphere hasn't been studied as much as outer space and lower level atmospheric pressures. So this advancement on this technology and our input is really putting us on the map. Thank you for your time, and let me introduce and turn over to St. Paul Elementary.
So now you're going to hear from a few of the other teams and different age groups. So this is a group of 4th graders that I work with at St. Paul Elementary. And again, they're all in the 4th grade. I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
I'm Sophie Hilbert. I'm Madison I'm Kristen.
And so can you guys take Senator Warner and the rest of the group? When do we typically work on this? In the mornings, right? They're in my room about 7:30 every morning. And we're looking at sensors. And we would invite you in a little bit if you'd like to look. They can actually pull up data for you and show you that where you have a sensor at right now. The guidance office at school. So we've had a sensor set up there. We're collecting data. You know, even though that's not out into the atmosphere, it's allowing them to look at data, right? And what's one of the things that we could tell from your data, we've looked at it, that you could actually tell Ms. Dickinson that we know has not happened in the guidance office since we put that in there?
Why?
There's no light, which means to you what? No one's been in that room. So, you know, because it has a light sensor on there, they're learning to analyze that data. It may seem very trivial, but again, take the data, figure out what the consequences are of that. And so they've been doing that.
What do
They're
they
very
use to read the data? Do they read it off the computer?
Yes, they are. They're reading it off of that, off of iPads. They can show you here in a second how that works. Each of their sensors are labeled. And so here in a few minutes, when we get done, I want one of you guys to take the iPad and you can show Senator Warner where you're pulling your data from, okay? All right, another school that we're working with, and again, there are several, and we'll talk about that, is LF Addington Middle School. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
I'm Jeanette Boggs, and I'm 12.
I'm Hunter Action and I'm 13.
I'm Gavin Collins, and I'm also 13.
I'm Luke Collins and I'm 12.
So today we're going to be talking about some of like the modules and what they read. So we just came by like from Miss Boggs at LF Addington after she went to a class to teach us about the ThinSat program. And we stay after school on Tuesdays from 3:30 to 5 o'clock to work on this. So we've been doing stuff from configuring the modules to gathering data. One of the ways that we've gathered data is we got a helium tank and we sent one of the modules up, and we used radio signals by the ground station and the radio module. So we sent that up and we got data, and we've also used drones, and we've got data from that, and we've had partners and we went around the school to see what's the difference in temperature and different aspects of that around the school.
Today, Luke, Gavin, and I will be talking about what the modules do and read. I'll be doing temperature and pressure, which the temperature here says that it is 27.5 degrees Celsius or 81.5 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, warm it is in the room, and pressure is the force of air that pushes down on us. And of course, that says that it is 93,258 PA.
Okay, I will be reading about the altitude, and the altitude is, we are 2,279 feet above sea level, or 695 meters. The relative humidity is 59%, and the lux is 500.
And there are two types of ultraviolet lights that are harmful, and that is the UVA and UVB, which penetrate the deepest layer of the skin. And it is one, the UVA is 1 and the UVB is 0.
Thank you for your time and have a great day.
All right. So how can you read those numbers out of the boards? Wow. Your eyes are good enough to read that, don't you? When I was 12, I could read that stuff. That's pretty wild. Good job, guys, good job.
Thank you.
And we hear from another group.
Yes, we do. All right, Union Primary.
I'm Kim Lester. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, it's Kunja.
And what grade?
My name's Mary.
We have actually a combination of third and fourth grade students, and we meet twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays in the morning. And so what we usually do with our sensors is we compare in two different classrooms, which is interesting in our building, because our building at one time actually was an open building. We had no walls, and then we put walls in the last 30 years or so. And so it's interesting because you would think in the same building your temperatures would be the same, and what have we discovered? They're not at all. And so my room tends to be like where a wind tunnel is, and my temperature in my room tends to be about, 10 to 15 degrees cooler than the ones in the back of the building, which are warmer. And so we do a lot of comparisons in the different classrooms throughout the building with temperature and humidity and with air pressure. And so we've done some experiments with those and learning a lot about how the weather works inside of our classroom and how the different rooms inside the building compare to other rooms.
That's great.
We've really enjoyed it, and so we're going to be doing our live launch here pretty soon so the kids can get some comparisons for the outside temperatures. So they really enjoyed it. And even though they're very young, they have learned quite a bit, haven't you? Yes, we've enjoyed it, haven't we guys? Okay.
Good job.
Here with us today is John I. Burton, and that is Michael Rupp, if he wants to introduce his students and talk for, and he's gonna talk to you a little bit about the teacher aspect of it.
Well, thank you, everybody, for taking some time out of your day today, and especially Senator Warner, thank you. There are a couple of points I'd like to hit on as far as the benefits of this program. So, number one is the scientific merit. We're going to be launching these thin sets into an area of the atmosphere that's known as the ignorosphere. That's because science largely ignores it. We're anywhere from 90 kilometers up to about 300 kilometers up. High altitude balloons can't fly there. Airplanes can't fly there. And traditional spaceships just go right through it because they need to get into higher orbit so that their satellites can maintain orbit. You're not going to launch a $250 million satellite and only have it stay up for 5 minutes. But these thin sats allow us to put something up there, get meaningful data about interactions between sunlight and our atmosphere, as well as how that atmosphere changes over time. The second benefit, of course, is to the students. I mean, these students will be able to walk into a college interview or, put on their college application that they helped design a satellite that was put into low Earth orbit. Now, I don't think there may be one person in this room, Dr. Cecil, who can probably say something to the effect that he has had an impact on a satellite that was actually put into orbit. The rest of us can't say that. I sure can't say that. So it's going to give them a tremendous leg up on competitors when they're trying to get into schools. Also, it teaches them problem solving. Anybody who's worked in a technologically related field knows that there are setbacks. There are hurdles that you have to overcome. And these students have learned to overcome those hurdles, work together as a team, and then, overcome that hurdle and get to the next step in that project. Whether it's getting sensors to connect to each other, to a weather balloon, getting a GPS unit to work, etc. They've learned to overcome those hurdles and hopefully come up with a product that will produce some meaningful data. So it's really a pleasure to be involved with the program. Thank you, Ms. Carter, for heading it up. Thank you for joining us.
You've got some students here, can they?
Yeah, I've got two students here. Yeah, absolutely. I've got Brianna Aldridge and Olivia Mullins here today.
Why don't you both tell me what you like about the program? You guys talk now. You guys tell me what you like about the program.
It really is helpful for college and stuff, like Mr. Rick said. And it's really fun because we haven't really got a chance to do anything like this before. You don't really get that kind of choice every single day. You just be able to help some of these salaries.
You want to add anything? Thank you.
All right, so you've heard from a lot of these. These are the teams that fall under the Wise County Lead Teams. And out of those, if you kind of look at that, 6 of those 9 are located in Wise County, Virginia. So, Wise County is striving very hard to be a leader. But all of those teams are working. Notice also that the very last one listed there is a homeschool team out of Washington County. So we're trying to branch out. We're trying to make this available to as many people as we possibly can. So again, I thank all of our students, our parents that was here. I want to now introduce you, let you speak. I'll tell you guys a little bit. I jokingly told Jack that I was doing my homework. I was studying. Okay, I was studying Wikipedia and everything that I could. So, but to just, some things that we all know. First of all, he's currently serving his second term as our U.S. Senator. He is, and I'm going to read this to make sure I don't mess up, the Vice Chairman of the Select Committee on Intelligence, also on the State Senate, Banking, Budget, and Rules Committees. From 2002 to 2006, served as governor. Interesting comment on that I actually met him when he was governor. And surprisingly enough, there's another young lady, I call her young lady, she's much older now, that's in this room that you met. But Catherine, who was a student of mine at the time, and we were in Richmond for Model General Assembly. And you spoke in Castlewood High School where I was teaching at the time. We actually got an award. So today, you're hearing from her son.
Wow. Yes. That's supposed to make me feel old.
Well, it makes me feel old, I'll tell you that for sure. But I think that I want to use that to make a point to you that we know that he has the political portion. He is also a businessman. He's a family man. And he's dedicated to bettering the state of Virginia, and in particular education. Because, you know, and I could I could read everything to you in terms of that, but my takeaway for my homework, when I tell the kids after they've done an elaborate definition, and I'm saying, now tell me in your own words. You know, what I'm going to say to you in my own words is that he does support us. He supports the state of Virginia, he supports Wise County, and he is very interested in seeing what our children is doing and supporting our children from that standpoint. And that's not new. That's something that has been going on and ongoing for his entire career, and we hope for a long, long time. So it is my honor to present to you Senator Warner.
Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you to all of the parents and the teachers and the administrators, and most importantly, the kids who gave up part of a Saturday afternoon. This is really significant for me. I mean, I just got out of UVA Wise, where we did the graduation speech, and you know, talked a little bit about my background. I went to public schools all my life. First person in my family to ever graduate from college. And everything I'd ever tried to do, I failed at first. But one of the things that I think is remarkable about our country is that we're one of the few places where even if you fail, you can get up and try again. And that is uniquely American. And what in many ways drove me to be interested in politics, I'd always been a little bit interested in politics, but what really drove me to kind of get more involved in it and come back to it, because I was interested in politics, and then I decided I'd go into business. I failed a couple times in business. Then I was lucky enough to get involved at the very beginning of cell phones. Now, beginning of cell phones in 1982, everybody I knew who was, I'd gone to law school, I would go out and tell everybody about cell phones, and everybody said, oh, that's a crazy idea. Nobody's going to want a cell phone. I didn't have the wildest idea at that point how much, though, that cell phones, which I just at that point thought about as, could you talk to somebody else on a portable basis, would completely transform our lives. Cell phones have turned into smartphones. Smartphones, you could access more information on that phone than people my age, especially young people, can access more than their parents or grandparents could access in their whole lifetime. And what it made me realize, and what I thought that maybe I could add as somebody trying to do politics, and why I think this is so important today, is that, you know, whether we like it or not, technology is going to change our world. And it is, as Jane said, it's not every day, it's every second. And one of the things that I've always tried to be committed to, and why I want to commend Jane, but also, you know, even though he's not in town today, we've got to give some credit to Jack Kennedy. I'm going to give him a ton of grief for coming to this presentation if he wasn't here. So Jack Kennedy has meant about the idea that kids in Southwest Virginia, kids in Wise, should have absolutely the same opportunities as some kid who lives in Northern Virginia or some kid that lives in Silicon Valley. Right. And you know, honestly, as a country, we've not fully kept that commitment. You know, we interconnect the whole world now, but we still don't have enough rural broadband in Wise County and in Southwest Virginia. We show that you can build it anywhere, and we've shown companies that are kind of cutting-edge technology companies, may go build it in Shanghai, China, or Bombay, India, but we've not done a very good job of showing you can build it in Wise, Virginia. One of the reasons why one of the most, probably the best day I had as governor was when we brought those CGI jobs down to Russell County in Lebanon. And there were a lot of young people that talked about the fact that they wouldn't have to leave their hometown. And what I'm excited about in what I'm hearing today is a couple things. Nobody knew what cell phones would become. They've changed our world. What Jack and Jane and people involved in this program are realizing is, as dramatic as cell phones changing, there's going to be 2 or 3 new waves of technological change that are coming. One is this whole notion of thin-sats and the use of satellites. For years, one of the reasons why we didn't do as much in space as maybe we could have and should have is because every time you set off a rocket, as one of the presenters mentioned, it costs $250 million just to launch the rocket up into space. And we, as a country, would go out and build these giant satellites that frankly were, I'm from the intelligence side now, saying big sitting fat cows up in the sky. Frankly, they weren't very nimble or quick. Now, we've seen the fact that we can shrink everything down into a much smaller size, makes it much cheaper. And what we're about to see as a transformation is, and this is not just with NASA, this is with, how many of y'all heard of this guy Elon Musk in SpaceWorks? Well, he's actually starting to send up rockets where you can send up a rocket, and then that rocket can land back down, and it doesn't burn up in the atmosphere. And it means we can cut the cost of sending things into space or lower orbit by like 100 times cheaper. And this is going to open up a whole new opportunity for people anywhere, and I hope anywhere in Virginia, anywhere in America, to have commercial space. It's going to be as transformative as cell phones. And if your kids are learning about it now, in elementary school, and middle school, and high school, that's going to put you, as Jane said, at the cutting edge. You're not going to be, these aren't going to be jobs that are going to be eliminated by technology. These are going to be the jobs that are going to drive technology. Now, let me tell you part of the bad part. These sensors are pretty darn cool. One, we got to make sure we keep making them in America. Because one of the things that is a problem, and I'm a big believer in unmanned systems. I also think that's going to be a huge opportunity. Virginia got selected as one of the 6 states to try drone experimentation. And not only did we have the first medical delivery at RAM, we delivered the first burrito in Blacksburg. But you know what? Of the 1 million drones that were sold last Christmas, 95% of them were made in China. That's crazy from a national security standpoint. If we start allowing all these sensors to be made in China, then we in effect give away our intellectual property and we give away all our ideas. And I can tell you this much, the Chinese are not playing for second place. What they're doing right now in investment in artificial intelligence and next stage wireless technology called 5G, and what they're doing in kind of even the next generation of computing called quantum computing, they're going to pass America in the next 3 years if we don't do something about it. And I worry, I strongly support our national defense, but we just passed the budget, we're spending about $700 billion on defense, and I sometimes worry that we're buying the best 20th century military money can buy, guns and tanks and ships, when most of the 21st century battles are going to be fought with misinformation and cyber, using satellites, the ability to try to end up, you think about, I'm not get off on the whole social media thing, but boy, think about how Facebook and Twitter is changing our lives, and how people can post things that aren't true and pretend to be somebody that they're not really. The next generation of technology is going to end up putting, Jack's face on Jane's body. But honestly, though, you can put another person's face on a body and it'll live stream out. And so you don't know if that's a politician or if it's a business leader. It's going to completely transform our lives. And we talk about these sensors, and Jane made mention of this as well. She mentioned Internet of Things. Everything that we buy going forward is gonna be connected to the internet. Our cars are connected to the internet, our refrigerators connected to the internet. You know, I was at the big Consumer Electronics Show last year, and they had a hairdryer that was connected to the internet. Now, why you need your hairdryer connected to the internet, I don't know. But the thing is, every one of those connections to the internet are based on sensors. And one of the things that we gotta do, this again gets more on policy rather than on jobs and education, but every one of these sensors, for the most part, don't have any security built into them. So the bad guys could come in and try to hack in to your thin SAT, you know, or hack in to the room where you're trying to check your sensor in another room in the school. And there's good things that come with it, but it's also bad things. So we need to think through this. And what I want to do, and I know they're giving me the hook, because I got to, you know, I'm not going to completely give them the picture of it. So here's what I, one is, I really commend what you're doing. I think it is absolutely great. And this is where our country and the world's headed, frankly, whether we like it. And we either get on the rocket ship or get left behind on the rocket ship. And one of the things that always makes Southwest Virginia so special to me is, you know, Southwest Virginia's gone through some challenging times. You all produced the energy that drove our economy for most of the 20th century, and then some of those things changed. And communities with less character might have given up. And the thing that always brings me back, whether it's at UVA Wise or seeing these kids here, or going down to the jobs in Westfield, Lebanon County, or seeing the new hotel in St. Paul last night where I was at, is that nobody in Southwest Virginia knows the meaning of quitting. And what I hope I can do, and my job is now, is how can I try to help you? You know, I know if Jack was here, he would say, send more money. And, you know, part of that means, well, maybe we ought to put a little bit more money into research. Maybe we ought to put a little bit more money into NASA programs. Maybe we ought to put a little bit more money into STEM education. Challenges is, you know, we may have to do some trade-offs. We may not be able to build as many tanks, or we may not be able to do some other things. Because, you know, the other thing that we've done, and they're going to go completely crazy if I start talking about this, is politicians for the last 75 years have run up the national debt to the point that we're $20 trillion in debt now. And both political parties are guilty. You know, anybody that says either political party's got a monopoly on truth or virtue or patriotism doesn't understand history. And it's going to take people who are willing to kind of work together to kind of get these things straight. But I commit to you, as I've done to Jack in the past, is in my office, we help support initiatives from WISE. We help try to make sure we get kids from your schools over there to Wallops where they can actually take advantage and see some of the launches. It's one thing to see these sensors or to help build your FinSat, but to actually see that go up on a rocket, that's pretty darn cool. And so I think the last couple minutes before they put me on an airplane and get me out of here, you know, what else can I do to help these students, and more importantly, to help these communities make sure that you shouldn't have to leave. My message at the university commencement speech was, in the 21st century in America, you shouldn't have to leave your hometown to find a middle-class job. And we all brag about all the interconnections of the world. We got to make that a reality, because it's a statement now, but it's not enough of a reality. So what can I do beyond what I've been doing already to help?
I think you've done a lot just now by challenging us and explaining that. I do want to extend to you, before you walk out, the invitation that I have already made the commitment, along with Help for Jack, that every student that you see in this room, every student that's on those teams, we're going to be at Wallops. November this year, when this Antares launches, we're going to be there. And we'd love to have you join us to watch that.
Yes.
So your staff can put that on your calendar.
Let's put that on my schedule.
But,
and how are we going to get them all there? Are we going to raise local funds? What do we do?
yes, we can take any help with that. We're going to look at local funding. We've asked, I know Jack's been kind of spearheading some of that. I've told them they may be baking brownies. They may be selling hot dogs. We thankfully, Virginia Space made the commitment and took care of the financial for us on this. So that's going to be our buy-in to that. But, you know, you don't go that far in this program without seeing the end product, because I think that's going to be enough. I've seen a few rocket launches myself, and that's enough to seal,
Still, yeah.
you know.
One thing though you ought to try to do too is get these young people, and I can help arrange this, if they're going to Wallace,
Mhm.
let's get them to stop at NASA Langley.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. And I've got
And
some.
see some of the experimentation going on there.
And we've taken teachers, and that's really important too. We've already arranged a couple of trips, and I've been instrumental in that from this area. So that would be great, you know, any support along those lines. You know, that type of learning is something that cannot be learned in the classroom, absolutely.
And you gotta, and that's, in a lot of ways, that's the most important thing we gotta do. We gotta make sure that all of these kids can dare to dream whatever dream they possibly can imagine. And because, you know, the thing we gotta worry about is, if you think the last 20 years have been wild in terms of change, you haven't seen nothing yet. This is where it's like a wheel that's spinning faster and faster and faster and faster.
Agreed.
And, you know, you can get into a pretty scary place about robots or automation, or you can say, we're gonna get ahead. And we're gonna be the people to run it. And one of the things we gotta do is make sure that happens. Because otherwise it'll be pretty scary world.
It really will. I mean, I agree with you, and that is, I think if I think back to, we were talking about cell phones, and I can remember arguing with my brother, I didn't need a cell phone. And now we go into a mass panic if we can't put our fingers on the cell phones. And the things that these students are going to then later on be telling their children and grandchildren about, I think it's gonna be phenomenal.
It's gonna be, well, you know, in cell phones, I feel a little guilty at times because, and this is where we gotta worry a little bit about some of these companies like the Facebook and Twitters and Googles. You know, somebody did a presentation to me the other day. They said, and I feel a little bit responsible since I was the guy who started this company, Nextel, but on average today, we touch our cell phones about 150 times a day. And it's like the only thing where every time we touch it or interact with it, we give the company who we're sending that more information about us. Like it's in the world of oil and the world of coal, it's like we're giving them more coal or we're giving them more oil. They're trying to program our children to touch it 250 to 300 times a day. And I got 3 daughters in their 20s, and I think they're hitting those numbers already. So, you know, with all this new opportunity comes new challenges. I mean, the ability to kind of manipulate information, to send you false information. You know, I want to have all this innovation, but we've got to have some guardrails as well. Because with every good piece of innovation becomes a challenge. And whether you want to be the innovators or whether you want to be the people figuring out how we deal with the challenges, that can be done right here in West. So
before you go, can we get a picture of you with all the students?
I'll get a picture with all the, hey, I will do all the pictures of all the students. And anybody got a final question or comment? Let's get all the students up here.
Final comment to you, I will say is thank you on behalf of all of the students, educators, and we will be in touch because I will definitely be taking you up on the offer for how we can help.
All right, so I'm looking at, I guess my 2 takeaways are, spend money on getting these kids to Wallace, and making sure they get the language.
That's
So
right.
come on in here.